Hello. This video is of me making a comic page by hand. I'm working on a comic called Eternis. I guess I have to talk about the plot now. It's basically like a sci-fi fantasy of they have to find a magical plant to cure this character. And there's other stuff that happens too. But yeah, that's basically the gist of it. Yeah, and this is me. This is page 4 of the comic. This is when, she sort of has, you can see Carnation, this main character here, when she has like when you see her having like an episode of the quote-unquote sickness that she has, and they realize that it's a lot worse than they thought it was, and it's like an incurable disease. I don't want to give too much away, but yeah. Oh, lighting change. This is the next day. I worked on this like Friday night, and Thursday and Friday night, I believe, is when I worked on these. And then, yeah, the problem with this part is that since it's in like the light blue colored pencil, you can't really see it too well. But yeah, I'm just like sketching in these parts. This, and then like referencing, I'm like, where did, what design, did their clothes have? And I, constantly reference the past drawings. But even then, on that top right drawing of Poppy, the guard, I forgot that she had like bruises on her face, which we go into later. She like got in a fight with somebody else. And that's like a whole character arc or whatever she goes through, or she is going to go through, in like the, next 3 years or whatever that I, get that part drawn, I guess. I currently have, chapter 1 written and thumbnailed, and then I'm just going through the pages of that, and I found that like getting something written down and then getting thumbnails for it is the most difficult part. And then in the past few weeks, I've been sort of just, chilling drawing these pages. So I feel like it's more of the like, what am I going to draw? Like, what's the content of these? But then once I get that sorted out, and that's sort of the part that I sort of flounder around with the most, once I get that sorted out and I'm like, you know what, I'm actually going to draw it now. That's when I sort of get the ball rolling a little bit more. And still you can't really see what I'm doing, but we'll get to the inking part and then you can really see it, really actually see what I'm drawing. But yeah, I decided to do this comic traditionally just because I thought it would be fun. Like, I wanted to have fun making this comic, and I guess the purpose of this comic, when you get into like, what's the purpose of, what you're making, it gets kind of like, oh, I'm trying not to take the, comic too seriously. I'm not like, this is my moment. This is going to be my, best work or whatever. I'm more of making this I'm making this comic to learn how to make a comic, I guess. And I'm making this comic to get better at drawing and to get better at drawing comics. So that's more of the purpose of this. And I feel like taking that sort of expectation off of myself has really helped. And then you can see me floundering. For some reason, the ink wasn't quite flowing the way that I had anticipated off like the dip pen. It seemed like the pen was getting a little bit stuck. I was like, oh no. And me trying to just sort of like work on that so it took a little bit for me to get into the momentum. I feel like next time I'll probably do a bit more of a test sketch with the pen, because I just sort of jumped right into this page, which, you know, is, you know, when you think about it, if it's like, am I going to draw at all? It's like you know, I have to, you know, do test doodles, I have to, you know, get a bunch of references. If thinking about how, this is all of the stuff that I have to do to draw something, keeps you from drawing, then just draw the thing without all of that expectation and test prep. Because it's sort of better to, you know, it's better to have, you know, a, what are they called? It's better to have like a McMuffin from McDonald's for breakfast than not have anything for breakfast at all. You know what I mean? It's just better to draw something than to be like, I have to, you know, test the pen. I have to, you know, warm up my hand and do warm-up drawings, and then psych yourself out and not draw anything. So yeah, I sort of jumped right into this one. But I think the page turned out okay. I really like the, you know, main drawing of Carnation, which is good because that's the focus of the page. And I think the lettering turned out pretty good. You can see, I think I like it because it's supposed to purposefully be wobbly. Yeah, so it doesn't have to be super like straight and perfect. And because of that, you know, I give myself a lot more freedom with how it's supposed to look. Because sometimes making the like perfectly circular speech bubbles I've struggled with a little bit, but I'm sure that I'll get better with time. But either way, you know, I really like the ink dip pens, and I think that they turn out really nice. And, you know, I love the good pen on Clip Studio Paint and the, Baskerville on Procreate, you know, as much as the next person, but I really just love the just scritchy scratch feeling of the ink dip pens on paper. Yeah, I'm honestly surprised because I do sometimes have like too much pressure on my pens, and I've done it in my sketchbook before because my sketchbook is just like a cheap, what are they? The like Creation Arts sketchbooks that you can get like the hardcovers for in a bunch of different colors. So I think I have like punched a hole through my sketchbook before doodling with the ink dip pens when I first got them. But I haven't done that with these papers before. The paper that I'm using is the Blue Line Art comic book paper. So they have like the, they printed the like grids, the paper grids on it. So they're like, here's where, you know, don't put the text outside of this dotted line, or else like it won't be really printed that well, and like here's the end of the page. So the paper itself is a 11 by 17 dimension, but the actual like quote unquote part of the paper that would be printed as a comic book is, I think, like 9 by 11 or something like that. So you can see at the top where like you put what the comic book is for, what page it is, what volume it is, and they're kind of a industry standard. Well, I mean, there's like a lot of different variations, a lot of different kinds of these types of paper, but this is just one of them. It's actually like one of the only ones that they had available on like the Blue Line Art comic page website, because basically like the rest of them were like sold out, or you could get them in a bulk of like 100, which I didn't need or want to do. I just got like 25 of them, which will last me for most of chapter 1. I believe that chapter 1 with the thumbnails ended up being 35 pages. But also, I did for like page like 3 and 4, you know, I changed a little bit of how the thumbnails operated because I wanted this moment of Carnation's face to be a bit larger, and I realized the difference of the real estate that I had on the page. You know, so I could make some of the comic panels smaller and fit some more on the page, and then make these sort of big moments bigger and let them live more in that space to take up more room. So yeah, even the thumbnail parts, I'm, you know, always constantly changing the format and making little adjustments throughout the whole process. And I'm sure because, you know, it's been, you know, weeks since I made those thumbnails, so I might do an update, especially on one of these pages. I'm like, this, you know, I've learned a lot about comicking format since, you know, I've made these, so maybe on page 10, I'm like, I've learned so much, and this format just isn't cutting it, and I might, you know, redraw those thumbnails or something throughout the process. So, you know, I'm always changing and evolving constantly throughout this, you know, because it takes so long to make these guys. Well, I mean, this page, I feel, you know, I made it over the course of 3 days, but, you know, I got a full-time job and, you know, a life, so I feel like, you know, I spend, you know, an hour here or there, and so maybe 2.5 hours on this whole page, but it is a relatively simple page with just this close-up picture of Carnation and then these 2 panels of her and Poppy. So it isn't super complex, but I do still like the way it turned out. I like the way that Carnation's face turned out. I like the way the little folds of the fabric on her headdress turned out. I'm really not good at drawing fabric, so I feel like that turned out pretty well. With fabric, sometimes, basically the rule of thumb that I go for is you just make it super detailed. You know, you just add a bunch of random lines, and then people are like, whoa, it's so detailed and cool, and I'm like, yep, that was the intention. You just make it so detailed that people are like, whoa, wow, you're so good at, you know, drawing, when you just added a bunch of random lines. That's not a tutorial or a tip. That's just something that I have done. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it though. One thing that I do definitely want to get better at, that I've looked at a lot of different references from different comic book artists, is just sort of the way that they use ink. Here's me doing little hand exercises and hand stretches. Also, you know, also take rests and exercise your hands and stuff. Oh yeah, so the way that like comic book artists use like light and shadow when they're doing their ink and line art, right? Because it's not just like, you know, quote unquote line art. It's very much also value and looking at it in this sort of 3-dimensional space, and making very dramatic shadows and shadings with that. And that's one thing that I love about a lot of comic book illustrations, just how bold and punchy they can be with their shading. You know, just have a little sliver of an eye and the rest of the face is in shadow and all of that stuff. Obviously, I'm not confident enough to do that quite yet, but you know, I'll get there with some of maybe the punchier compositions that I might come up with. But now it's just, you know, a couple drawings of some faces, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, so that's all the rambling that I have for right now, but there will be some more rambling at the end of the video, so I'll see you guys in a few minutes. yeah, this is basically where I finish inking it and then let it dry a little bit, and then erased the blue lines under it, even though you can't really see it. When it like gets scanned in, you can sort of see those. Fun fact, when they were first making comic books, it's called like no scan blue specifically because when they were first making comic books, like old copiers couldn't pick up that really light baby blue. But I use like a phone scanner on my app to do it. I do it in the morning after I work on this page because it works best with like the natural light from my window. And then I scan it in and then do the tones in Procreate. And yeah, you can see here some close-ups. I really like the way that she turned out in that big picture, but I'm not sure if I jive with the her in the top left corner. I feel like her arm looks weird, but yeah, overall I like it. And then here's me doing the grayscale in Procreate. I actually got the like deleter manga tones. I bought some and tried them out. I didn't really like them in person. I didn't like the process of like the X-Acto blade and everything, but I really liked the end product of the way it turned out. So I just scanned them in and I have them in a Procreate file, and I just use them digitally in Procreate. So yeah, here's the final page. Hopefully it'll be on Webtoons, but I also have like a WordPress website for it. Anyway, I hope you liked this video. I'll probably be making more of the different pages as I make them. So yeah, anyway, goodbye. I hope you have a wonderful day.